Since the dawn of time, man has been curious. And for almost as long, the Vibes Broadcast Network has sought the truth. Investigate, discuss, explore. Okay, maybe in other episodes, but this one is just listen to the vibes.
The views and opinions of our guests may not necessarily reflect those of the host or the Vibes Broadcast Network. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I have here Miss GG Freee. Yeah, see, we're excited today. Free.
You got it down. If we can say my last name right, then we're done.
Well, she has some children's books, and she's got quite the philosophy on life and ways to help people to better themselves. And so we're going to talk about those things today. But first, Gigi, tell us about you.
About me. Oh man, that's one of the things that goes with my philosophy, that I feel like so many of us kind of get caught in our story. Mm-hmm. And if we tell the story over and over and over again, then we kind of miss the opportunity to be and to grow into something more. True. And when I talk about me, I suppose the only thing that I would love to share is that the human experience is more fun than anything, and it is a blessing to be here. And if you're struggling, because I've been there, I can relate to almost every struggle we have all been through. I mean, we could live struggles because life is not easy. And so when you hear somebody just jump out of nowhere, like, life's fun, you're like, what? When I have bills to pay and children to feed and a boss to take care of and all these things. And I know, I get it. I really, really do. But for me personally, I feel like I'm somebody who has learned how to really, really grasp the present moment and how to stay present as much as possible. And that doesn't just mean like, I mean, you can't live anywhere other than the present moment. So It's kind of weird cliche when people talk about that. But I suppose when I say that, it's that mind chatter that we all have, that constant voice that's telling us what to do, how to do it, when to do it, why to do it. I feel like I've distanced myself from that. And now I can go through my human experience present. Just kind of, so that, I mean, that's me. If you really want to dig, I could give you some fun things about me.
Well, talk about your travels, because I know you've been a few places.
Okay. That's when everything started for me. I lived in the corporate world. One thing I was thinking about today, you know what? I've spent more of my life in school than I have in anywhere else. Because you realize, like, you're in grade school until you're 16, 17, 18. You're in college till you're 23, 24, and people who continue are in there till they're 25, 26, 27. I didn't get out of college until I was 24 years old. And then I worked in corporate for 6 years of my life. And then I decided when I was 30 it was actually 29. I quit my corporate job. I sold my house, I sold my car, I donated everything that didn't sell, and I took a one-way ticket over to Thailand. And I stayed in Thailand a couple months, and then I went to Cambodia and Vietnam and Malaysia and Bali and the Phi Phi Islands, and I just kind of kept moving around. And I took buses, and I didn't have a huge plan, but I still had money because I made decent money when I was working. And I stayed there until I didn't have money left. and then when I talk about the travels, people ask, what's your favorite place? Where's some place you've been that like everyone has to go? And everywhere has something different about it. The people Cambodia are so happy and so smiling and so welcoming. The food in Thailand is every Thai restaurant you've been to is a knockoff, but it's just as good once you get over there. Bali is beautiful and green and kind of a tourist trap, but it's beautiful. And then I came back when I ran out of money and I started living currency free. And I did that in South America, which was a little bit easier because going back, and I had went back and forth to Asia a couple times. And that's an experience in itself. You don't realize I didn't even know what jet lag meant. I always thought like your legs would hurt and stuff like that. It's not that. It's just like your inner clock is off because your body's so used to eating and sleeping at one time when you're over here. And then you literally switch to the other side of the world and your body's eating and sleeping at different times. It's really kooky.
It's funny you were talking about the food. It reminded me of when I was about, I don't know, 26 or so. We took a missionary trip to Mexico. And so
Okay.
we were going into Monterey. So I was really, really excited, and I'm like ready for some real Mexican food and all that good stuff. And we had a pastor friend that we were going to stay with, and like, oh man, I can't wait. We get there, and he goes, "Come on, we're gonna take y'all out for dinner," and I'm all excited. We went to Denny's. And then I get up in the morning, and it was very generous of his wife to cook for us in the first place. But I was thinking, we're going to get some good tacos or something. It was bacon and eggs and, the regular stuff, we usually eat over here. That was disappointing.
Wait, your whole Mexican trip?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, the whole time we were there, they catered to what they thought we would eat over here.
Oh no.
So until we actually went into town and got to go sightseeing, then you could kind of stop and get something. But for the most part, that's what we got. They've tried so hard to make us feel at home, and they want us to eat like we did at home. That's the whole purpose of leaving the house, was to get something different.
Yeah, I learned real quick in people's homes because I had a pretty finicky diet. I was trying to do the whole vegan thing, but it's really hard, especially when you don't speak the language, to be like, okay, well, it's not cooked with fish, right? And it's not chicken broth, right? So you started to have to kind of just ease on the diet, and then people would just show up with like white rice and French fries for me. That was like the one thing that they were safe to be able to hand me. French fries and white rice. I was like, okay, well, it's working.
Did you know that vegan is an old Native American word?
I didn't.
Yeah, it means bad hunter.
Your jokes, or is that real?
That's a joke. I just figured I had to give you a hard time.
No, that's good. That I really like that. I'll have to use that.
So on your journeys, you got inspired to write children's books, huh?
Yeah. So the one thing, and then I'll share with all of you, is that meeting people from all over the world when you have been in America your whole life, and the American dream is real. People really strive for that. People really, really, that's what they want. It's huge. It makes it, and even people overseas, they envy that and they want that. And I noticed a fluctuation of people and their personalities and how people treated me. And I mean, my blue passport would get me in the front lines of different things, and I had all these things happening within me by going through these travels. But the one thing that stayed the same everywhere I went was my interactions with children. The kids, no matter where you are, they have this glow about them. They have joy about them. They don't have any of the problems that us adults have. They don't have any of the worries. They don't have the stress. I mean, their skin is perfect. Their hair is perfect. Like the children everywhere all had that same. And I started like really migrating to them. As soon as I would get to a new place, if there was a child there, I just would sit and just listen. And I had heard so many amazing theories and philosophies that come out of children that even come close to what some of us people think about. And it made me think over and over and over again, you know, about our school system and about how we teach our children and the different parenting things and I never stepped in. I always was a very good observer, but to experience how parents were, especially even if a child would ask a question, something so basic that, you know, I mean, and I could, let's just give the basic example when the child asks, like, what happens after you die? And you'd be surprised how often that question comes up. And most parents choose to just go with, oh, you go to heaven. And that's where everybody is. You know, where's grandpa now? Well, he's in heaven. And it's this overwhelming, I kept watching it happen. Like, we don't know that. Why are we telling them that? We don't know that. And it happened and then it felt like it got loud. Like it got loud of everything that we were choosing to just, it felt like children were these mini computers and we get to program them into thinking and doing and being any way we want them to be. And in most cases, think about like some of the things you're afraid of. I have watched children being afraid of bees, children afraid of bugs, children afraid of the dark, children afraid of all these things. And I would ask them like, why are you afraid of the bug? And I would pick it up for them and have this whole conversation and completely blow the child's mind that there's nothing to be afraid of. Mom's afraid of the spider and mom kills every spider she sees. And I'm like, wow, okay. And so I started, all these things were happening to me, like just my consciousness or whatever you want to call it, my mind was constantly being shifted and routed. And it always came back to the children. And then that's what 100% inspired me, because I was thinking, if you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. And we're always talking about like, look at how many of us we watch podcasts to learn things from people. We watch documentaries, we read books. We are constantly seeking something. And that underlying seeking comes back to us really curious about who we are and why we're here. But we have all these influences that change that way of thinking. And it made me wonder, like, what if we didn't raise our children like cattle, and instead we cultivated new humans to be the humans that are these higher generations of people that actually can serve humanity and we can learn from them, instead of having the same kind of people who are out there seeking to be more mindful and trying to break their old habits and trying to have new routines and trying to watch somebody and just these robotic people doing the same things all the same time. What if our children had stimulating thoughts or provoking thoughts, things that would give them substance that they could grow up with? So my books are, I haven't really picked an age, because I would like the children to grow up with them. It's one of those books that like they can continue reading anywhere from starting at like 3, 4, 5 years old until 15, 16, 17, 18. And to be honest with you, adults could benefit from these books. Yeah. They're called Wake Up Before You Grow Up. Now I think that's going to be backwards, I'm assuming. So hold on, let me help you guys. I think we can do this. Okay, so this book is the Wake Up Before You Grow Up. This is the first children's book series for higher consciousness that you can find it on Amazon. But the idea is the Wake Up Before You Grow Up, and each book is told in the perspective and of, so you can see the books. Okay, I'll come back to me.
Now, to let people know, when you say wake up, we're talking more spiritually.
Yeah.
Not the definition that we're getting from, the social media nowadays.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that. I don't want the books to come across as like the woke community and the Great Awakening, but more so just like, because I felt like for me through my travels, it was a constant reawakening of something that I thought I knew, but now I know it. And every time something else happened, I literally could feel it shifting in me, all my emotions I went through, everything. And so that's where the books came from. So book 1, and there also, you saw them, the 7 colors of the rainbow and the 7 colors of the chakras. book one starts off with, it's very basic, it's very easy to read, and it's grounding, right? It starts with the root chakra, and it helps the child just to realize that they are life, just as the tree is life, just as their food has life in it, just as the flower has life in it. And it lets them see how important they are because they have this life, right?
Yeah.
And it mentions a few things like meditation, kind of just like, so the character learns how to meditate. And it's funny because some of the people that have reviewed the book so far have said things like, well, we've added meditation to our daily routine. I'm like,
That's
yeah,
good. It's helped me tremendously. It's
yeah,
basically it's prayer time.
yeah. It's just we don't know, we didn't know these things. You know, Jesus said, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. And I can't help but hear that all the time when I heard a parent do something. I was like, forgive them, they know not what they do. When they're eating
Yeah.
something, just forgive them, they know what they do. Yeah, so book one's very gentle. Then as the books go on, so book two comes in and it introduces emotions. Because think about, like, I think we think it's funny when a toddler gets really angry. Let the child learn how to get angry like that, because that is a learned emotion. They don't actually like have this thing inside of them. Anger comes from experiencing something, and we laugh about it and we let them, or we, and some parents calm them, of course, but I thought it would be nice to have a book that introduces the child to some of the basic emotions. This gives room for them to communicate with mom and dad when they're feeling that. Imagine your child the first time they're experiencing like jealousy or something. They feel this thing inside them, their friend got something they didn't, but they don't really know what that is that they're feeling. And then all of a sudden they have their mind and their thoughts doing something for them, creating this new conscious pattern that they're going to carry into the rest of their life. But if they were, when they were younger, had an opportunity to express these feelings and talk about them, maybe we could help. And it's not that we can do anything about it, but it gives them a window to be like, hey, let's talk about this. This is how this is making me feel a certain way. And so book two goes into emotions. Book three goes into fear, and we kind of mentioned that already, where fear is kind of a, fear's not real. Fear is a learned behavior. You'd be surprised. That's why people can overcome their fear. If fear is real, then everyone would have the same fear, but we don't. We've learned the fears through an experience, through a trauma, through something that caused this fear to build inside of us, and then we hold it, and we're always, and we talk about it, and we reinforce that fear over and over and over again. So book three helps the child really understand what fear is, and that they can actually choose love instead of being afraid. And then book four is my favorite, and that brings us up to the heart chakra and source. I have found a way to allow the child to see the divinity or the creation in everything, from the snowflakes to the patterns on an animal to their breathing. They can just be like, whoa, like, and then I made it appear that our creator, this was all his art, and that we're all a part of it, and that we are the most important part. At the very end of the book, and it says, and then the creator made you, the humans. And so it's really beautiful, and these things came through me, you know. So sometimes, like, when I've written them and I finish, and I just weep, like, geez, where'd that come from? It's so good. Book five moves up to the throat chakra and teaches the child about not only that the sounds of the whales whistling, or the buzzing of the birds, or the sound of the wind, but they too have sound, and it's their voice, and they can actually use it to communicate and to create their realities and speak things into existence. This is where now the books, I start to get a little spiritual, and a little, those things you've heard about with like law of attraction, I introduce it to the child secretly into the books. And then book six is my second favorite. It is on the third eye, and it's on intuition. And it shows the child intuition as a sixth sense. So I kind of break out the book with, you have five senses, but what if I told you you have six? And it's your intuition. And then I kind of break it all down for them. And then book seven takes all the rest of the books, and it shows the symbol that I use, because each of the books is told in the perspective of of life and fear and sound and intuition. It's told in that perspective, and it gives them a symbol. But then they realize in book 7 that those symbols are actually the chakras. And that now, as they've learned each symbol, each chakra, it helps them align theirs. And then they can see that they are the way, and that they are the truth, and that they hold this light and this answer that we all can learn something from. And it really empowers the child to feel like, wow, I'm really important, and I'm special, and life is really bigger than anything we could imagine. And so it's they're tools. And I hope one day that these books are offered in children's schools and are used, so that they just continue to stimulate the thought and provoke our children to think more open-minded, just to
You know, I used to be a preacher, so I've studied the Bible up and down a few times. And what my perspective is God gave us free will, and God wants us to think for ourselves. He just gives us some rules to live by. And we've gotten away from those rules. And the problem I see with a lot of adults and parents, that they try to live their lives through their children. They're trying to pump their ideas into their kids. And this is the way, same way I feel about school. Teach them what they need to know.
Yeah.
And teach them basic rules on how to treat other people and how to get along with other people. Pick up, you know, the way certain things that you want to believe in or you want to think, let that develop naturally. We're supposed to be thought provokers to make our children want to think. And, you know, maybe they get interested in science, maybe they get interested in math, maybe they're an artist, maybe they're I don't know, a musician, or maybe they're an athlete. You know, we have to let them decide those things themselves and stop trying to push. You know, I'm sorry to bring this up, but you know, you see this with the people on TikTok. You know, they wanted to be another gender or something, and they're trying to push that on the kids. Why don't you let the kid decide that for themselves and let them be kids for a while? Okay, when they get older, if they feel that way, that's fine, but let them decide. Don't try to push your beliefs on them. You know, teach them morals.
Yeah.
This is like at school. Teach them citizenship. Teach them to be kind to you, to your fellow students, and to share, and to, you know, treat them like you'd want to be treated. Why can't we just go back to that and not? I don't personally don't think I need to know what my teacher does at home. I don't need to know about their spouse. You know, their home life is their home life. Keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
Teach them the basic things. And, you know, if you're teaching them to, you know, you've thrown in that spirituality, you've helped them to say, oh, maybe I should be more spiritual instead of more atheistic or agnostic. Maybe be more spiritual.
Yeah. And I it's, I don't know if spiritual, I mean, spiritual is a beautiful word, and well, all words are, because we figured out that these sounds coming out of our mouth have definitions that we all look at differently. But but it's more than spiritual. It's conscious, right?
Yeah.
It's really conscious, because something that I have recently learned about self is we have, here, let me do this little thing with you.
Okay.
Tell me something that you know how to do. You're confident you know how to do it and you do it well. What is it?
Draw.
Draw. Great. Now tell me one thing that you know that you don't know how to do, that you're certain, like you just don't know how to do it.
Oh, I don't know how to play instruments very well.
Okay. So consciously, you know how to draw. And consciously, you also know that you don't know how to play an instrument. Those are both two conscious things. The unconscious part of you are all the things that you don't know. Okay. So when we think of consciousness, most of us are out here when we talk about spirituality trying to be more conscious or higher consciousness, or even my message in the books, what I'm trying to do. It's more about understanding the unconscious, because otherwise people live only in what they know. Even people who have pretty comfortable lives, it's because they're only doing the same thing over and over and over again. And it almost becomes just their pattern, their loop, the same thing, because they're conscious of it. Most people have, whether it's fear or it's just literally the fear of the unknown keeps a lot of people from doing anything, or you have your worry. It's because there's so many things that exist over here in the unconscious. And all my books, the idea of these books is just to bring light and awareness and consciousness to things that they just may not get exposed to, without telling them they have to do this, they have to do that, like our regular raising and teaching children is. These are thought provokers. These are stimulants, just an idea, just to give them something, to plant a seed that can possibly grow into something, to bring light to those unconscious parts of children that most families, that's why I said they're great for adults too, because some adults probably haven't thought of some of these things. And if I can bring light and awareness to some unconscious part of you to allow you to see like, oh, I didn't know that. And then all of a sudden something starts to grow. And then you go and do your own thing. I don't have to do that's what musicians are doing. That's what actors are doing sometimes. That's what movies are doing, literally. Like movies are giving you this unbelievable experience of something that's so impossible, but could be possible, that all of a sudden it brings light to these unconscious parts of our life. And that, like, human evolution needs our consciousness to raise, needs to get out of these old patterns of the same thing all the time, and to break into the unconscious and to raise that up a little bit.
Well, that goes back to what I was saying about the being spiritual. I personally believe in God. Okay. People have their different beliefs on who God is, but God, the universe, nature, your consciousness, all this is all one. And what we're trying to do is get to that next level and get closer to God. And so that's why I call it spirituality, because it's all part of spirituality.
You're right. And I like that sometimes when people talk about spirituality and religion, it ends up being this weird imbalance of like, can we be spiritual and religious?
Because that's different. Those are two different things.
Right.
I mean, to me, religion, and believe me, I have visited many churches and I've studied different religions, and it's more of a what man wants, and some of it is political. That's how like the Catholic Church got into power back in the day, and the way they run their religion is to keep them in power. If that makes sense. So it's more of man and political junk, instead of focusing on God and getting to that level of consciousness where you are one with God.
Yes. And that's the journey for me. Go back to the question of what it's about you, my ultimate sought out journey is to be one with God. Jesus said, for the Father and I are one, and ye are my brethren. It was so plain as day. And then if you've ever read any of the other scriptures, like or not scriptures, but other words, like the Quran, it's always spoke as in we. Whenever God is being spoken, it says we. I think that some of the metaphors we have kind of mixed up, and we're lost in translation. Yeah. And all of us, even when I spent time in Thailand with the Buddhist family and went to all the temples, and I grew up non-denominational, and I worshipped God all through Campus Crusade for Christ, all through college, everything. And I know that Bible, I think it's one of the best manuals for the human experience that we have. But I think that all of them serve a particular purpose and truth. And if we are able to at least see that without having judgment, without having judgment that one's right or one's wrong, because we don't know what's right and what's wrong. We have to believe in something, right? And that's why believers come in crowds and seekers come in solitude, because the believers need each other to hold on to their belief. But at the end of the day, that this whole thing, that's down to the reason that the acorn grows into an oak tree and not a pine tree, all of those things come back to our source and come back to our God and come back to this. That's the seeker's journey, is to know that. And
I mean, think about it. It's a manual on how you should get along and treat other people. So even when you're working and focusing on yourself getting better, that's also your relationship with other people and how you should treat them, and to be kind and not to kill them, and not to beat up on them and or slap them at the award show or something.
Right. Have you ever heard the what Bible stands for?
I think I've heard the acronym before, but you can remind me.
The basic instructions before leaving Earth.
Oh yeah. I have heard that before.
Isn't that good? That's good. These are all the things you need to learn while you're on Earth. Just start there.
Yeah. Well, to be a kinder, better person, to get along, and it's a manual on how to get along with other people.
Jesus wanted us to be like him, not to worship him. He wanted us to be like him, that peaceful, loving, unconditionally, and helping everyone. That's what we're all supposed to be like, to strive for.
We should be getting along. We should understand each other, that we're different, that we're going to have different beliefs and different likes, but there's no reason why we can't still cohabitate with each other. But unfortunately, the way the world is going nowadays, it's everything they can to drive a wedge between us, and it's sickening. I've never seen it this bad in my 52 years on this planet. I've never seen it this bad.
It was bound to. The Terrence McKenna, he said something once that had me like, ooh, he's like, we're just going faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. Is because we're not evolving. We're just the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and the violence and all the things, we're like you said, wedge. It's just we're further and further away from truth. We're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. And that's also another reason why, for the children's books, I'm like, we need to start at the root of the problem, where the beginning monsters are created.
Yeah.
let's
well,
cultivate
I totally understand the whole thing about they didn't want to talk about God in school. Okay, I know everybody's got different beliefs. I think that we could make it kind of a cookie cutter thing where you can introduce God and not say, oh, well, you have to believe this religious belief. But still, when the kids and adults, if you believe in God, you believe the power of God, that should make you want to be a better person. But I think they'd rather live with what they want and not what is better for everyone.
Yeah, well, and it's difficult because we have, because like you said, we're so different. We have all sorts of different beliefs that are in our schools. It's why they kept it out of schools, because we couldn't agree on one to teach. And that's why they have, like Catholic schools that allow that. But it was difficult. And that's why I love what the book 4, I call it Source. And it literally just starts off by saying, like, well, we all believe in something. And who invented religions, and who separated all of them? What if they were all the same thing? What if they were all just love? What if it was all this? And it was our creator. Just, if we were able to do that in schools, then we could have it in schools. But most schools are ran by a really strong conscious belief in one thing, and that's where it doesn't work.
Well,
yeah.
Teach citizenship, teach math, teach English. I don't need to know what goes on in your private life, at school. I'm sorry. I don't. And I think that's sad that you see teachers getting on TikTok and they're crying because they can't talk about what's going on in their bedroom to their kindergarten class. Why do you need to? Why do you feel you need to be validated by children?
Right.
Teach them to think, but teach them to think for themselves and make their own decisions.
How to think, not what to think.
Exactly. Not what to think, how to think. So you've said you have one book that's on Amazon right now.
Yeah.
Okay, and
So
tell me a little bit about that as briefly as you can.
okay, well, it's just basically the idea is I want to do one book at a time so that families and children can really integrate and let this message marinate in them so they can really feel it. So that when the next book comes, it gets just as much credit as, because I mean, I had thought about launching all of them at the same time, one a month for a certain while, this, that, this, that. And all of a sudden I was like, you know what? No, I'm gonna launch just as if like a movie almost, like the when one movie comes out and then the next movie comes out like a year or two later. I don't know the timeline of it, but book one is available on Amazon, and you can even go to the www.wakeupbeforeyougrowup.com, and that shows all the books. And then when the next books launch, I'll eventually have the links available there as well. But book one is just on life. It's the very basic of all 7 books, and it's beautiful.
Well, my grandson loves to be read to, so I might have to get that for him.
Oh, are you send me your address and I'll send you the book?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I would love that. Seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, Man, Gigi, it seems to me like we could have one podcast after another just talking about each book.
Right. Yeah, they're so important, and they all deserve their own spotlight.
Maybe we could come back and talk about each book when it comes out. Would that be okay?
I would love that.
I'm sure folks would be curious about it. Well, we could get a little bit more in depth without giving the story away.
Yes, I would love that.
Gigi, you have been wonderful. I've enjoyed our talks because we talked back and forth on Instagram for a while, and then we got together and talked over Zoom last week. And she's just a beautiful person, and she has the right attitude, and I think she has the right intentions. And so I'm going to read the book, and I'm going to give my thoughts on it. And from just talking to you, I think it's something that I'd be okay recommending.
Thank you.
So, and tell us where your website is and your social media.
So the website is just www.wakeupbeforeyougrowup.com. And I'm sure that Mr. Coyote will put that in the bottom.
I will do that. I will put that in the description.
Thank you. I do have an Instagram that kind of goes through and shows you all the books. Just Wake Up Before You Grow Up. I'm not active on it. And I recently, my Miss Free, my last name's Free with threes. I have that Instagram, but I'm no longer using it as well. The only social media I'm doing right now is helping my lover on his page. And you could find your way to that as well through the Wake Up Before You Grow Up and the Miss Free. But social media I'm doing my best to stay away from it.
I don't blame you. I've said this time and time again on different shows that if it weren't for trying to get the message out and promoting the show, I wouldn't do social media at all, because there's too many ugly people on there. And then what the sad thing is there's more good people out there than there are the ones that are the most vocal on social media. And I think it's chased a lot of the good people away. So the intention of social media was to be social and not to attack other people. Is just a way of communicating your ideas and having discussions. But unfortunately, it's turned into, pardon my language, a crap show. And I hate that.
I feel that, so I left it.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I don't spend a lot of time on it, and I'm sorry, folks. I just don't. I'll post the shows, then I'm off.
This is a good way for you to connect with people too. You get the good people on your show. You're having the communication, and you have both your podcasts with the paranormal as well as these. I think I think that's a wonderful way for you to interact and connect with people more than social media.
Well, I thank you because hey, I get messages from folks like you that it really encourages me and keeps me going. I have my down days. I have days I'm like, oh, why am I doing this? And then somebody will say, oh, I really enjoyed this, and it lifts my day and it makes me realize this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. So, Miss Gigi, we're going to call it a day, but it's not the end. We're going to come back and revisit some of this.
I would love to.
And not only thank you for your time, but for those of you who are new to the channel, thank you for stopping by. Please come back and subscribe. And for those of you who are regular to the channel, thank you for your support. Truly, I mean it. It's because of you that I keep going and I keep doing what I'm doing. And so until the next one, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network